Josh, we'll start with you. What did you think of Rogue One before? So it came out 2016, it's been a long time. What did you think about it when you first saw the movie?
I really liked it. I really liked it the first time. It was really enjoyable to watch in the theaters.
Okay, Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I liked it. I watched it with a friend of mine, and it's funny because he came out of the theater and I was like, "Man, that was awesome." He goes, "Really? That sucked." I was like, "What?" And that's when I thought he was just the only one, but then I kind of saw some reviews afterwards, and everyone was hating on it, and I was like, "What? I thought this movie was great."
That's weird. I feel like that's backwards.
It's the perfect movie.
I felt like everyone loved it, all over the place, kind of like in general. Josh, you?
It's definitely polarizing because when I first saw it, I felt like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome."
Like everyone's
objectively
gonna love this
good, yeah, objectively a fine, inoffensive movie, and then I was very
interesting. Josh, do you recall any of that?
I remember it's the second film that Disney came out with for Star Wars, and so I think there was maybe some leftover sort of kind of weirdness about The Force Awakens, maybe, even though The Force Awakens, generally speaking, a lot of people really enjoy. I just think it was people were still trying to get their feet wet with Disney's style for Star Wars. So that might have been the why there was a mixed reaction. I don't recall anybody ever saying that it was bad. I remember most people at the time were thinking that it was really, really good.
Yeah, I do as well. It definitely was. This was before Episode 8, I think, right?
Yes, Episode 8 came out the next year.
I think so, 17. Yeah.
So literally, like, Force Awakens happens, I'd say pretty well, other than the critique that it was like Episode 4, people really seemed to like 7 for the most part. Like, there was obviously the critics out there, but generally people seemed okay with it. Then this one, I think most people seemed to like this one. Like, I remember people talking to me about the cinematography, the characters, maybe just like the grittiness of it. It's just like it's more like a military Star Wars as opposed to like a Jedi Star Wars. And also a lot of different things about it, like the fact that it doesn't have the opening titles. I think at all, right? No exposition at all in this one. Very different film.
So Rogue One was
pops right into it.
Yeah, Rogue One was the first Star Wars film that did away with the opening intro, that did away with kind of the classic Star Wars soundtrack.
Yeah, I was going to say that it was really interesting that they had like kind of a semi Star Wars theme. Like, it's almost like the melody of the Star Wars theme was more like the rhythm to the intro, something interesting like that.
And it's also the first standalone Star Wars film that wasn't connected to another film or two.
Yeah. Was this before Solo? Yeah, it was. I think this is the first side movie. Yeah.
Yep. So I think a mixed reaction at first probably was just because it was the first of its kind, and it was when you introduce something new to a formula that's working and has a really big fan base, that can create some blowback or just create some like this was not the Star Wars experience that we're used to having, all things considered. At least in those types of areas.
Wait, before we forget, Luke, what was your initial reaction when you first saw it?
So when I went in to see it, I was pretty open about like, okay, let's see what this is. This feels like it's going to be a pretty different Star Wars kind of film. I overall didn't really like it, but it wasn't necessarily for things I could easily touch on. It's just like I left being like, I just don't really remember a lot. I didn't really feel that many emotions. I wasn't really connected to the characters. But I did like things about it. You know, like there was things I liked before, and then even watching it the second time, I like saw it again. I was like, oh yeah, I still like that. So there's like things about it to appreciate. And I think a big part of what I'm going to be diving into, at least from my section of this, is like just unpacking, like, do you guys agree with the things I dislike? Do you disagree? Is there different angles that I can approach this that I'm not? That's kind of a foreshadowing that I do, just to say it, I do feel kind of the same about the film. Like rewatching it, I feel very similar. So in my notes here, we've got the opening has no exposition, that we kind of covered that. Different music for the opening, just a very different feel for Star Wars movie, which I give them points for that, doing something original. I wrote nice cinematography. Like I love what they do in space with shadows.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
The shadows are awesome. Yeah, like when you see like the Star Destroyers and they're like these like shimmery, almost white ships, and then the shadow like of the planet creeps over it. Love that. I thought that was great.
The scale,
yeah,
the
I agree.
scale of the Death Star compared to the Star Destroyers in that opening sequence was really cool.
Yeah, agreed. So I like that. I like that they're on that kind of damp planet at the beginning. You know, it's not really rain. It's just sort of like a dampness, and they're all like kind of got the condensation on like their uniforms. I just thought little textures like that are fun to see, kind of a new, it's not just like another desert planet where it's like, okay, we've seen desert planets. Show us what's something new. So I like that.
Although classic Star Wars, the main character comes from a backwater, moist farm.
Yeah, middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's always like farms.
Okay,
yeah.
so this is kind of familiar. So okay,
True.
but good still. Like, it works.
Yeah, that's true. We don't have a lot of Jedis or main characters coming from like hustle, bustle, big cities. They're always from like farmland Star Wars planets.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm also glad that we're not at Tatooine at all. That's a huge plus.
Yeah,
I think.
no
matter what.
Tatooine.
Yeah.
Well, I found like it's basically like if you had a movie where like a kid like grew up in like some random town in Alabama and they like left, and that's the whole point of that place is really boring, and then they keep going back to whatever Alabama. That's literally what Star Wars does all the time now.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's something that bothers me in general. It's like, oh, let's keep going back to Tatooine, this place that we love. No, the point is that it sucks. That's why Luke wanted to leave so bad.
And really, they designed this planet as like the one you don't want to see and live on.
I
This
think
is the worst kind.
if I remember correctly, Tatooine is in 5 of the 9 Star Wars films.
Wow.
It's in 1, 2, 4.
It's
6,
funny how Tatooine is the
9.
most. It's just desert.
It's just
It's the most like basic
Just
planet
desert.
out of all of them, maybe. It's just a desert planet, and it's got the 2 suns. I guess is pretty iconic, but
Yeah. That's when I was watching Rogue One with my wife. She's like, "Wow, I'm glad there's like been barely any sand." As soon as they get to the beach planet at the end.
That's
like,
right.
Well, I guess
That's
there's-
right.
At least there's not just desert sand, I guess.
yeah, at least it's beach. Though I love the tropicalness of it, but we'll get to that later, I guess.
Yeah. I think the settings are really cool. I think they did a good job of going to lots of different locations without it feel like they're just like hopping around just get stuff. Like it didn't. Some movies they just kind of go to different locations to just grab a thing and then go somewhere else and grab a thing.
Oh yeah, it's almost
Kinda
like they're
feels like a video
changing
game.
location because it's like, dude, the audience is going to get bored. We got to go to a new planet where they get something.
But
I think
this
I
one
think
they had a
something
few
that-
different locations and it was good. It was like, oh, we're gonna go here to talk to this guy, and then something happens, and then now we're going here because we have to. Like it didn't feel just like, oh, now we're here, but it's all basically the same. Like it actually felt like a bunch of distinct little places, and it made sense why they were there, which is good for modern Star Wars.
And something they did at the beginning that was really cool, because it ties into what we were just talking about with the locations, is the first. I actually couldn't give a timestamp on it, but like the opening of the film really introduced you to the concept that there's a lot of moving pieces to this story, and they kept hopping between the different planet locations to show the different sides of what's brewing, and it really did a good job of bringing you into, okay, so this is a Star Wars story, but it's a different flavor. You don't have instead of the ticker that like explains to you what's going on and then launching like classic Star Wars, it was, oh, so this guy with his family just lost his wife and his daughter is now taken by some other dude who's friends of theirs, and it's the Empire. There's the Rebel Alliance. This dude is getting information from this guy apparently years later, but we're not sure what. He kills his informant, which never seen that before.
See, this is the whole, all these layers that you guys notice, I feel like, is what's going to make this interesting. Because I'm like, man, I kind of like didn't pick up on some of that.
Yeah, so like and then like we don't reach the Star Wars Rogue One thing until like 15 minutes into the movie, and they've introduced all of these different moving pieces, and by the time you reach Star Wars Rogue One, you're like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot. This is a wide spanning problem with all of these different characters who are involved, and how the heck are they going to tie all this together? And so the opening was very much show not tell, and I think they pulled it off really well.
So I know
It's interesting that you're surprised about it, Luke, because go ahead.
Well, I just want to establish, like right now, I think I probably should have done this at the beginning. We're sort of talking about the opening of the film, basically everything up to the title screen. So this is like the rainy planet. The wife gets killed. The daughter runs away. The dad gets kidnapped. Saul Guerrero finds the girl, I think, before the credits. So like kind of this is all of that stuff getting established. But what were you about to say, Michael? Because I just want to make sure we stay on track together of where we are in the film. And I didn't. Anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No worries. This actually is right after that. So if you're cool with me talking, like, going to the right after that section with Jane and her dad, where that guy's.
Yeah. So just a couple comments on that scene. So like these are some of the things that I noticed. Like I sometimes think I just miss bits of dialogue or things that get kind of spread into the story. But like, for example, it's like very important that they find the child right at the beginning, where they kill the mom, they need the dad to build the Death Star, and then without really any context, they're like, we need the girl. And I don't really understand why. There's little things like that in this film. I don't feel like they establish some of like the need. Is it because he won't build the Death Star if they don't have his daughter with him or something, or they can threaten him with his daughter? Is all of that just assumed?
I feel like it was to tie up loose ends. I thought it was just like to tie up loose ends. Like we can't have part of the alien running away and then telling other people what's going on. This guy's got connections. If they find her, they might cause us problems. Or
because she doesn't know anything about it, though, does she? Because she doesn't know anything about the Death Star.
No, so it's
no. She might go to like his connections, and be like, "Hey, my dad got taken by some guys," and they're like, "Oh crap, let's go kill those guys." Or,
right. I guess
like you said, maybe they're like,
it's like implicit. It seems like
let's get. Yeah, it's like, let's get his daughter, because if we don't have his daughter and he thinks that she's alive somewhere, he's gonna not do anything until he finds her, because he's a dad.
But isn't that what happens? But isn't that what happens anyway? I'm not necessarily saying it's a problem. It's just more of where it's like the murkiness in the plot, where it's like, wait, why is it important for them to find her? And I'm like, I guess I could just assume reasons, but then they don't find her, and then they just go along with their plan anyway. It's not like it doesn't make a difference that they don't find her. It's sort of like, we gotta get her. I mean, we didn't get her. Oh well, it doesn't matter. And it's like, what was that?
One of those things where I think we're in the moment. If you were a person doing a thing and you were trying to capture somebody, and part of that guy's family like ran away, you'd probably be like, hey, let's get that person. That's part of this. Like, I don't know. I think if you like if they were to plan something out and have like, okay, if he has a daughter, make sure we could get her specifically. I don't think that was a meeting they would have had, but I think they were in the moment like, okay, all these people are around. Crap, his daughter's leaving. We should probably get her, because it probably is better to have her than not to have her.
I can see reasons for it. I just felt it was a little bit of like, I don't even know if it needs to be clear. That's one of the hardest things about this film is there's some critiques I have that I'm almost like, I don't even know if they need to address it, but it just feels like there's a lot of little things like that where the emotion of the character is like, why is it important to get the girl? Why is it important for the girl to get away? Why is this, and I'm fuzzy. So anyway,
I think the implied blackmail,
the more leverage kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that was the implied thing. The thing that I didn't like about the opening sequence was they obviously had a plan if the Empire comes for wife and daughter to escape, and kind of like the husband will take the fall, as it were. And I thought the idea was like, hey, if you don't have my wife and kids, you can't make me do something I don't want to do, so I'm not going to do it. But then both wife and daughter screw up the plan.
Right.
Like, that was the thing that bugged me about
Yeah, and her like going in and getting shot I thought was kind of lame.
It was, but it was also like
stupid. But
it was like if the whole point was
it's like she needs to die, that's it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like thought through. It's like, why is she doing this? She's just going to get herself killed. And it's like, well, I'm going to die, but I'm going to shoot one of you first. And it's like, this is not really the best plan. Not that I want to nitpick every character to pieces, but I just didn't understand, other than the writers being like, she needs to die at the beginning, so how about she shoots at them and then they kill her? And you're like, but why would she? That's just an odd thing for her to do, in my opinion.
I don't want to approach this whole conversation in a meta way, but I do think that sometimes, like modern audiences with all these YouTube reviews we watch, at least for me, like it's easy to want to critique things from a really logical point of view.
Sure.
But I think a lot of those things that don't make sense are often like human moments. Like, yeah, maybe they had this plan, but when it comes down to it, maybe some people in the family aren't ready to do it. For one, it's like a kid, so that's crazy. And also,
yeah,
the mom, I don't remember exactly what the mom might not have been with the kid when she got the gun, so she's like, crap, I gotta like protect my kid wherever she is. Like, I kind of just freaking out because they haven't actually done this before.
So I agree.
They're not logical beings.
Yeah. I don't want to take it and be too like harsh on like, it is not exactly perfectly. This was not the smartest decision this character could have possibly made. When it's like, okay, human beings don't always make the smartest decision they can possibly make. They have emotions and they make emotional decisions sometimes. And so like, this is a weird thing because I don't know how much I can nitpick this, where I don't know how much this makes a difference in the story, but I do think it would add a lot more to the emotion of the scene. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but imagine like the wife being disturbed, showing a quick little scene of her being disturbed, or like more directly disturbed with, I'm never going to let my husband leave like this again. I'm never going to let them take him. But even that, why would she get herself killed? I don't know. It's like a slightly stretch in my opinion.
Here's the difference,
I think that
Michael.
being in love is enough reason for her to fight for it like that.
But here's the pushback I give you, Michael, with what you just said. We're not critiquing the people, we're critiquing the writing
right. Yeah.
of the scene.
Yeah. And like what they showed.
What I'm saying is the writing. What I'm saying is the way it. What I'm saying is the way that it showed doesn't seem to raise any issues for me, because it feels like none of them feel like things a person wouldn't do. Sometimes a person would do something that seems like something like that's really random that they're just doing just to get a person to another place. But you know, a wife going crazy and just trying to protect her family in some insane way is not something that a wife wouldn't do.
I would agree
in that
with
situation
you,
where they're always scared.
But I don't think they told that story.
It didn't get me out of it.
I didn't think they told that story though. Like they didn't tell a story of like a wife that's like, I'm going to give my, in my opinion. What were you going to say, Josh? I
was going to say, the problem is that in the short space of like a minute of like 45 seconds, they found us. You know what the plan is. Paul Saul Guerrero, they found us. Well, you know what the plan is. Jin, you know what the plan is. Stardust, you know what the plan is. 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 And then both the women in the scene go against the plan.
That's fair too. That's a fair, more logical way of looking at it.
You clearly have this plan that you all know. The two women get away. The man goes out to
the two women get emotional.
And then the ladies, and then the mom like pulls her off to the side and is like, hey, you know what the plan is, right? Yeah, okay, go execute the plan. I'll be with you in just a minute. And then they both go. It's like, it was literally like, okay, you can't have these 8 references to a plan, and then you go against the plan, and it's like that doesn't make sense. And at
least it's like if you're gonna set it up, and then like if they go against the plan, make that part of the storyline is my opinion. Like where it's like part of the storyline is them going against the plan, and then that's what it just feels like he doesn't react to like. I don't know. I don't know what kind of narratives
I think you can argue that sets up.
Go ahead.
I think you can argue that sets up Jin's character the whole movie. That's kind of her thing, if she goes against the plan and does stupid stuff. Like it's actually pretty congruent with the rest of the film.
I suppose. I do think it's kind of
into the storytelling. It actually is congruent with the rest of the movie.
I guess I'd be curious to hear more on that point.
Doesn't really go against plans though. She kind of just.
Yeah, dude, when they go to see her dad, she messes up the whole plan by running out to see her dad, just like she did in the beginning of the movie.
Well, she goes after what's-his-face because she finds out that his plan is to kill her dad.
Yeah, which is also against the plan that she's also ruining by doing the wrong thing.
Her plan, the plan that she thought was being executed was get her dad, get her away. What's-his-face's plan, Andor's, was kill the dad, so she's executing the plan that she signed on for.
Okay, so here's a part where I think the writing is rad, because, okay, let me back up a second, because you're right there. I think the one thing that I think is a flaw in this movie is they talk about how rebellious she is a lot, without really like showing it that much.
That's very corny. Yeah.
And it's a little cheesy.
It's almost like she's a rebel.
It's almost like she's a rebel. It's rebels do. They rebel.
Like
was that the line that was in the trailer, but not in the... There was a line about it that was in the trailer that wasn't in the movie.
We're going to get to that
I think
scene.
That was it. It was like...
Trust me, we're going to talk about that scene.
I forgot about that.
There are a number of pretty corny lines of like, rebellions are built on hope.
Dude,
it's like,
all right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're going to talk about that scene.
You guys are free to not like the beginning thing. I don't think it really poses any issues.
To clarify, I didn't. Issues, I'm not saying I dislike it. I'm not saying I dislike it. I felt like there was things missing to establish like interesting narratives. For example, like if the narrative is this character doesn't like authority and rebels against it, It's sort of like, what's the emotional, how is that emotionally interesting? It just feels sort of like a one-dimensional writing. It's not bad. It just is like, is that something she's learning? Is that something that she struggles with? Is she conflicted on it? Does she have different role models? Like, is there anything about her that is like connected to that narrative? And it just seems sort of like, oh no, that's just what she does. Now that you mention it, though, I've not really thought about it until you just mentioned it just now.
I think they didn't do the best job of tying that together with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, just the opening just doesn't establish, in my opinion, like a lot of intriguing character arcs, I guess. It's just sort of like, oh, he's working for the bad guys. Oh, there's the bad guys. Oh, the wife gets killed because the parent always gets killed. Oh, and now the girl's on her own and she runs away and she gets away and now she's going to be taken on this adventure because her father's someone important. It's sort of like this narrative I just feel like we've seen in a lot of movies, and it's happening again. Not terrible, but not especially interesting to me either.
Her character wasn't particularly well fleshed, wasn't particularly
Agreed.
deep or fleshed out.
So that brings me to the next part of the movie. If you want to move forward,
Yeah, because
I
it
think
kind of went along on the opening. Next scene isn't it?
She's
go
not
ahead,
the
go.
best character. Oh, so she's not the best character, but I think the next guy we see, Andor, is the best character of the movie. Who should have been the main character of the movie, I think.
So let's talk about the scene. So he finds this guy who's wounded, tells him about the Death Star. I think he talks about. Does he talk about the weakness or something, or the plans? I guess.
Well, it's the.
What does he share with him?
Yeah.
What does he share?
You gotta get the ball rolling a little bit, yeah.
I don't remember all the dialogue. It's a very dialogue-heavy movie.
I remember he killed him, and I was
was
kind of surprised by that he kills him.
Yeah, that was.
Well, that's a cool thing, I think.
Good,
They set him up as a guy who will do, like, he's not necessarily like a bad person or a good person. He's on the side of the rebellion because he wants to be free and do whatever he wants. But he's also like will clearly do whatever he needs to do to get his objective. Like this guy who he knows, he's like, crap, this guy's gonna slow me down. If I stay here and help him, we're both gonna get caught. We're both useless. So then he just kills that guy. Like it's really cold. And you're like, holy crap, this dude.
It definitely was not Star Wars.
serious.
I was surprised, and I was surprised that they just did it and then they just moved on. That surprised me.
Yeah, they did.
I think it's really cool. I think it's a really cool setup for that character, though, where they really showed a lot about who he is in that moment. Like, crap, this guy, he's passionate about the rebellion. We don't know why yet exactly, but he's passionate about freedom. He's going to do whatever he needs to do to get it. I think it's pretty cool.
I agree with like making an edgier character. The critique I have is though is they don't really show you don't learn much about his character after he shoots the guy. Like you don't see him show remorse. You don't really show him choosing not to show remorse. They just sort of kills him and he just leaves. And I feel like there was not like you didn't really see. Does he not care about people? Is he mission focused? I don't know. It's like it was there, but I don't think they showed it, and so I didn't feel it. It felt odd to me, that scene.
I think the ambiguity is what made the scene powerful, especially when the rebel general gives the command to kill what's his face,
The limping guy.
Because you realize, oh, he's willing to do it. Like it's not a phony order. This guy's shown he's willing to do it and will do it without remorse and without caring 2 cents. And so they set it up really, really well. I think the ambiguity actually worked in that.
I disagree, but I can see how you both see that. I think like don't you?
I was gonna say.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go for it.
I was gonna say the opposite of you, Luke. I think what it sets up is it show like throughout the movie, it's not super obvious, which I think is cool. Like they just show him just like taking charge and just doing whatever he needs to do to get done. Like he'll encourage somebody, if like not because he's a nice guy, but because he needs them to, like let me slow down. At that like turning part of the movie where Jin's trying to convince everyone to go fight, he kind of comes along and says, hey, like I believe in you, like we all believe in you, and then he kind of rallies a bunch of people and they're like, we're ready to go, let's do this. Like he'll do whatever he needs to do to get it done. When they're like doing missions, he just like takes charge and tells people what to do. They're like, I don't know how to do it. He's like, just do this and then do that and just go. Like he's like on a mission. He's not super emotional about it. He doesn't have big dramatic reasons for it. He just knows what he wants to do or what he needs to do, and he just does it. If that makes sense. Like I feel like that was the point they were trying to drive home with this character with that opening scene, and it kind of is congruent the whole time.
Yeah,
like Josh said, he was willing to just kill this guy, even though it's not technically a bad person that they know of, but it won't do them well it won't serve him if that guy's running around spreading more secrets around. So he's like, well, I gotta do this.
I wonder if maybe there is some correlation to it and the fact that he's going to die at the end. Like that the fact that all the rebels, we kind of know in this movie that a lot of people are probably not going to survive. At least there's sort of this idea, like, you know, that in episode 4, they're like, lots of so-and-sos lost their life to get these plans. So there's sort of this idea that like, oh, people are not going to survive this.
They actually don't say that. So what we're
In
thinking about...
4?
Boston's lost their lives.
Yeah.
No, so that's 6. That's 6.
Oh, true. Fair enough.
So, yeah. So I think... I remember.
Oh, they don't
that.
talk about the Death Star plan, people dying to get the Death Star plans at all. Maybe I completely had that wrong going in to see this movie.
Yeah, so I think
I thought that too.
I remember one of the strengths of Rogue One coming out of it was that we didn't know anything about these characters, so there were all these new characters, and I remember watching it being like, man, like we've added characters. What happens to them? Like where, like do they, whatever? And then as the film goes along, and particularly at the end battle, which not to skip too far ahead, but as the mission continues to deteriorate, you as the viewer get along with the characters themselves begin to realize, oh, no one's coming out of this alive. Like no one's coming out of this alive. Like you go into the mission thinking classic Star Wars, like they're going to get in, get out, there's going to be some fighting, they're going to escape, and it's going to be, and then we're on episode 4. But then as it goes, you're like, oh no, wait, like they're trapped beneath the shield. The reinforcements are here. The Death Star's here. The other Star Destroyers are here. And then Kay dies, and so, like I imagine, I don't think it would be too great of a leap to go in assuming that a lot of these characters are going to die, but I don't think there wasn't anything particularly obvious going in that told you.
That's fair. Yeah, I must have just thought it.
I will say
assumed
though,
it.
I think everybody I knew thought that was that line in 6 was talking about these guys. So everyone that I knew who saw it they assumed they were going to die when they went into the movie.
Which is a fault of 6 and 4 being too similar, I would say. No offense to those films.
I don't think that's a fault with the movie, because in most movies, the main character is going to live, so it's not really any difference. You know that they're going to die. It's kind of the same amount of stakes.
Yeah.
So I think it evens out as far as your enjoyment of the movie.
So we can stay on this, but you guys good with moving on to the next scene?
Mm-hmm.
So next scene I have written down, and obviously if you guys have anything to go in between these scenes, is I wrote down, I think the robot's pretty funny. Like he was one of the characters that I thought was actually relatively funny. He's like, what do I know? My specialty is only strategic analysis, and it's like he's kind of sarcastic and a dickhead to people, and I think that was funny. I like that. And I actually felt like that most of the heart, surprisingly, was that droid. Like when the droid chooses to save the people and then he gets himself killed and he's kind of a dickhead to everybody, but then he kind of gives his life. Like I just felt like the robot actually had like a lot of heart behind it for some reason, surprisingly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the acting, the line delivery of that guy was spot on.
Yeah, it was funny.
That was pretty classic Star Wars. Every Star Wars has a droid of some kind. That's kind of the...
Well, and it wasn't just C-3PO again. He wasn't R2 again. He was just sort of his own kind of droid character with his own personality and his own quirks. And it wasn't overdone either. They didn't overdo it either, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Where they leaned so much on his humor. Sorry, go ahead.
I think all the side characters were pretty cool from like a classic Star Wars point of view, because you got the stick guy, I don't remember any of their names, but the blind guy with the stick, who's like a fan of the Jedi.
The guy with the huge...
I hate when I see stormtroopers getting knocked out by like sticks and fists, or like
when they have helmets on.
That droid K2. Yeah, like K2 literally hits one stormtrooper with another stormtrooper's butt, and that guy gets knocked out. Like that makes no sense. So stupid.
If you were wearing a bicycle helmet and I hit you with another bicycle helmet on your bicycle helmet, and it's like, yeah, dude, what would that do?
Nothing.
There's some poetic license, I would say. There's some poetic license, I would say, but when they go too far, it is like, dude, seriously?
They definitely go too far in this movie, I think. But I was gonna say, like that guy who's like, he's just like kind of a fan of the Jedi, or kind of like I'm not gonna say a fan, but he follows the teachings as much as he can, being outside of it. And his buddy who's like got the big guns and stuff, and like he doesn't totally like get all the Jedi stuff, but they're still best friends. Maybe gay lovers in secret, I don't know. But I thought
Maybe.
their characters were awesome. And I thought, in the moment at the, not to jump ahead again, but the moment
That's fine.
at the end when like the stick guy dies and like the big gun guy like rushes out to try to save him, and he's too late, and he like starts like chanting his force mantra. That, even though they're not like main characters in the movie, that got me a little bit. I was
Oh
like,
my
dang, like,
God,
that's some
really?
brotherly
I
love
hard
right there.
disagree. I don't. I'm like, I just didn't. I just felt like it was like, this might be mostly just a matter of opinion, but like they more than once in this film establish connections through characters by one character repeating what the other character said in the past. I think it was either twice, maybe even 3 times, where like the one character always says, "I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me." And then how do they connect at the end? He's like, he says it back to him. The other guy says it back to him. And then the same thing happens with Andor and Jin, I think her name is, where she says, I have it written down here somewhere, something about the, where is it? Oh, I have way too many notes. I have too many notes to find it, but basically he says something back to her later that she said earlier. And so like in that scene,
Hope or whatever.
yeah, rebellions are built on hope, I think was the line. But I thought that well, should we go there now? I'm not really sure if there's a better way to do this, because right now I have like a bunch of things written down. Like I've got Saul Guerrera, I'm actually not a big fan of. I think he's kind of cringe. I think the one guy looks very CGI. Unfortunately, he looks like a Toy Story character. But I also understand they didn't have a choice, really.
Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, I think he looks pretty bad.
So yeah, I thought Saw Gerrera, I think he has a cool concept, but I think him just
like what?
Staying behind to die for no reason with his
that's a huge critique I have. That does not make sense. That whole scene, we can maybe jump there, because I just got little things here, like the lying alien. I'm like, I don't know about that. I guess it's fine, but it seems like it could break other Star Wars things where it's like, why do they torture Leia in episode 4 if they have aliens that can read people's minds? And I guess it could make them lose their mind. I don't know. It's just kind of weak.
I don't know. So yeah, I thought that alien dude was weird. It was said to be way more important than it ended up being. But I think it's cool to have just weird little pockets of weirdness in Star Wars. And to be fair, in real life, everyone doesn't use the same technology for everything. Like there's different reasons. Could be like air
it's not a
access
strong
to
critique.
it. I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm saying I'm not giving it. I'm saying I'm not giving it a strong critique. It's not really that big of a deal. I did write down that it feels
it's a deal breaker.
Like a lot of these Star Wars movies feel like forced Motley Crues, where there's always like, let's have this weird guy and then this weird guy, and then like this is the one that's blind and this is the one with all the armor, and then this one's a robot and then this one's a weird alien, and they always kind of have this like inclusive feeling group, but it's aliens and stuff like that, and it feels a little bit cliche to me. I get it that you want like
that's a Star Wars thing though.
I know, and it's also like Guardians of the Galaxy. It kind of feels like people are trying to be like Guardians of the Galaxy, of these like odd weirdos that all get together and are heroes sort of thing.
Well, I mean, Star Wars has been doing that from the beginning. In the beginning, you had a guy, a girl, an old man, sexy man, and then a Chewbacca guy, and then R2-D2. Like, it's all sell toys. You got to have really different looking people so they can sell different toys. So your parents aren't like, well, this is just the same guy, but in blue. We're not buying you the blue version of the same guy. That's very much, the 80s and 90s. We got to sell toys, so let's make a show.
Yeah. I feel that. Do you guys think the characters are not one-dimensional? That's my big critique, is the characters feel kind of shallow to me.
I'll let Josh answer that first, because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, I think the characters... Rogue One, upon rewatching, felt very much plot-driven than character-driven. And I think that's done on purpose, though, because you don't have 3 films to develop characters, and it's really, Rogue One is the story of, it answers like 2 huge questions that are raised from Episode 4, which is, 1, how in the blazes is there that big of a weakness in a star killer machine? And 2, how did they get the plans?
Right, how do they figure it out?
How they get it?
Yeah.
So if those are the 2 things that you're trying to address in this story, your characters, unless the movie was 3 hours long, because it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, you kind of have to move things along, and so the character development has to be very, fast and very kind of in your face. So Andor's moment where he shoots the guy in the back and then escapes. Okay, this guy is ruthless, does whatever it takes for the mission, and would do anything he's told. Got it.
Someone would say that's a similar establishment as Han Solo in the original Episode 4, when he shoots first. You know, it kind of established him as sort of this, I don't care, I'll kill you if you're going to come after me, I'm kind of ruthless. And then they switched it around, and you can see it's so upsetting to people because it's like you change his character by just having him shoot second. And so I can see the weight of it in this film. I don't feel it as much. It's not as much as I felt Han's like killing Greedo or whatever his name is.
Right. And then but then you speak about Han Solo, you had a big character defining moment when he comes back at the end of Episode 4. Right? That was a huge character development moment for him where you're like, oh, so he's not in it just for the money. He actually he actually cares more than he says.
Well, that's what they start him out as, like, he's ruthless, he's mean, he just kind of cares about the money. And then the film ends with him coming back.
Right.
So it's like you start his character and you see how his character changes. Right from the beginning, they show he's one way and he comes around at the end.
Yeah. And so in this movie, the characters, I would agree with you, Luke. I think the characters are relatively shallow.
They can be arguably not in certain ways, but I just think overall it's sort of like when people are like, no, this joke is funny because look at all the pieces to it that make it funny. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't deliver it well, you can ruin it. And what this film feels like to me is a lot of things are there, but they don't, it's like weak directing, I think. Like weak editing, weak directing, where the director isn't giving the actors enough substance where they can like deliver something with a lot of emotion, because it feels like they don't have that to work with. So like, for example, like, you know, to go into the scene I think deserves a lot of criticism, Saul Guerrero killing himself and the world or the planet getting shot by the Death Star. So like little things, this is a tiny little critique, but this is the first one I had written down, is where he says on the phone to somebody, there's a problem on the horizon. And then they're like, what's the problem? And he's like, there is no horizon. And it's like, oh, it's so funny. But it also doesn't make any sense that you would tell someone that on the phone, where it's like this.
Droid. It was the droid.
Yeah, I know. But the droid is communicating there is no horizon, doesn't communicate like the planet's blowing up. It's just sort of like this vague thing. It just seems, it's fine. It's done for laughs. But the problem is when it's done for laughs at the expense of like engaging dialogue, in my opinion, where it's like.
But you don't think that the fact that it was the droid who said the line that kind of would kind of account for that?
Maybe slightly.
The droid is super dry sense of humor, very matter of fact, and just very like, sir, we have a problem. Yeah, okay, what's that? It's on the horizon. What about it? There is no horizon. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh.
But that makes it seem like he's making a joke. It's not like he's just being snarky. It's like he's like being witty, like he's like laughing to himself on the phone, making a joke when everyone's about to die. And it's just odd to me. I wrote down here, it's okay.
Well, he doesn't really care. He's a droid, to be fair.
Does he not? Droid? Does he not care?
Just a robot. I don't know.
Well, the whole thing with the droid is
it's not the end of the world. It just is what it is. It's one of those little things that I noticed.
Watching the movie, I think this might be to your point. There were certain things that I picked up on that were like, oh, so this is before we really had a word for it. These are the Disney Star Wars isms.
Yep, exactly.
That we don't like in the later things. But watching Rogue One, it was like, but they're not as bad. They're not as extreme.
Yeah, I guess I would say that.
Maybe they landed a little bit better. So like I had
this does not have the Disney, like the I think this is what you're saying. Like it does not have the level of Disney pollution that other movies have. Yeah. Like this is it, you can taste it, you can see it. I think that line was like kind of getting that direction where it's like this line is supposed to be funny. It doesn't exactly fit the I don't know that I would make the character just say this. This line is to be silly. That's why it's in here. Which is not the end of the world. It's fine to do that. But in general, I tend to critique that because it can pull me out of the film.
Mm-hmm. I think go back to the characters just for a minute. The characters are who they were supposed to be and meant to be to pull off the story they were trying to tell. It's just that some of the characters, they're just weak. So Saw Gerrera turned out to be a really weak character.
Agreed.
And so it's like, okay.
And he's a big deal, isn't he? Like a big guy and like just in general in the lore. I feel like I heard him
I
mentioned
never heard
it
of him before this movie.
Well, he was mentioned in the Star Wars Survivor game, Jedi Survivor. Like I was just playing that recently, and they mentioned Saw Gerrera. And I was
really?
like, wow, he must be like kind of a character. Like I didn't know if people went into this film being like, we finally get to see Saw Gerrera, kind of like we finally get to see Tom Bombadil kind of thing. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
I never
a
heard of him
fair
before
that's a fair thing to bring up. I just don't have the answer to that.
I think maybe some random fans might have known him from something, and they may have been excited about it, but I would not call him a big character. The fact that the three of us don't remember him outside of it, I think is pretty good.
And it does
indication that he's not a huge character.
Yeah, I think maybe he was just mentioned in like a cartoon or something, like you kind of know about him. But like I wrote in here that like I'll just rattle them off and we'll see if any of them stick. Where does this start? So the problem on the horizon. He lets himself die, which I think is not good for multiple reasons. And it's got that line where he's like, save the rebellion, save the dream. Yeah. Ah! And then like it all hits him and you're like, okay, why is he doing this? And it's like, because I don't remember what his line was for why he's doing it. And here's the thing. In the movie, it's odd.
He's just crazy, I think.
It's odd that he lets himself die. And then you're like, why did they do this in the film? And then it's because it establishes now no one can vouch for her. That's why he killed himself. Because then Andor is like, well, where's this message? Where is it? Did anyone else see it? And it's like, oh yeah, so-and-so decided he wanted to die though. That to me is like weak. Because it's like, I think they just were like, we need him to be dead. So let's make the Death Star blow up the planet slowly. Which was one thing. I was like, why is it that? Maybe it's a setting or whatever. But it's like, let's not blow it up quickly. Let's blow it up slowly.
It wasn't at full power yet. It wasn't at full power yet.
Which that's fair.
So
that's fair.
It wasn't, yeah.
But it's convenient. I don't know if it's like that convenient, but it's convenient that it's like, oh, let's make the planet blow up slowly so that we can have dialogue and everyone can see this message. And then let's kill him. Or wait, we can't just have him get killed. That doesn't make sense. Let's have him choose to kill himself so then he's not there. And it's like writing with the intention of ending up in a scenario as opposed to writing what the characters would actually do, in my opinion. Like it just felt kind of odd. It was like, why is he committing suicide? Why is he doing that? And it's like, oh, and now we have all these stupid problems because he killed himself. That is like a weak, really weak part of this movie, I think, is that scene specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't like that scene with him.
Just doesn't make sense. And like,
Freaking sucks.
what? Actually, why did they shoot that area? Did they know the rebels were there?
Yeah. So it was.
That's where.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how much convenience it was, where it's like everyone happens to be there, and then everyone's getting blown up at this. Like, it seemed like they were testing the weapon on a random place, but this is basically episode 4 again, where they're like testing the Death Star but not blowing up a whole planet.
Well, it was testing the Death. It was the Death Star's been completed. We kind of need to prove that it works in theory, and they had the Imperial pilot they knew was in that city, Jedhu or whatever it was, and Saw Gerrera was there. So, and they were like, hey, we just finished extracting all the kyber crystals, so let's just, two birds, one stone. Test and destroy the rebel presence and just go boom. And they didn't want to and they were like, well, we could destroy the planet. And I think they were like, no, we don't need something that big right now. Because the other side of this that I kind of appreciated it from a lore perspective was they were talking about how the Rebel Alliance has a political presence in the Imperial Senate, and the Imperial Senate doesn't know about the Death Star yet, and so they kind of still have to keep it under wraps. You can't destroy a whole planet and it not get out.
Sure.
So we're just going to destroy.
That's fair. That's all fair. I think
which was the kind of the undercurrent of that scene.
So I won't be too critical about the Death Star itself or how it was used, but I will remain critical of him staying behind to die for the convenience of the plot and really nothing else.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think that was
100%.
I think to your point, and this can be I don't know what you want to call it, but there just seemed to be a lot of pointless character actions that just didn't make sense. And we already talked about, like, we talked about Saw Gerrera. We spent a little bit of time about the mom, and that kind of useless, pointless thing, whatever she
gets
did.
herself killed, basically.
Yeah. I didn't really like the. I didn't appreciate the rebel council scene where Jin is.
We'll get to that one. Oh,
like I thought that scene was rough.
It's terrible. I hate that scene.
I
hate it. I hate that scene. I hate it.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think that Andor or Cassian. I think it's like Cassian Andor or Andor Cassian, whatever his name is.
Cassian. It's like Caspian without the P.
Yeah, Cassian. The reason that he spared the dad was not clear at all.
Oh, I literally thought this guy's name. Oh, it's Cassian Andor. Okay.
Yeah, Cassian Andor.
I googled him because I wasn't sure who you were talking about. Got it.
So he's got the dad in his sights, and he just decides not to shoot, which made no sense. Like,
that whole scene. This is like the middle climax scene. I was kind of surprised about this. I did like pieces of it, but it did feel like things were missing. So, like, first of all, So what did I write here? Because she basically gets up. They all get on the ship and they're flying away, right? So they're flying away. Saul Guerrero just died. Then he leaves, and then they basically are like, I wonder why he would have taken a sniper rifle, to like go spy on this guy or something. You know, they say something and like, his energy felt all wrong. He's definitely gonna kill someone. And it's like they say that right in front of her, like they're trying to hint to her, like they're trying to be like, you should go, he's gonna kill her. Kill your dad. But they just are like being bumbly, it feels like. They're like, duh, why would he do that? I don't know. Could he possibly be trying to kill this guy? I don't know. It just felt very odd, inconvenient that they like accidentally revealed to her that he's gonna kill her dad. I just thought that was just weak, right?
I didn't know what he was gonna do, so they're kind of like just processing out loud, like, wait, what's he doing?
Yeah, but like,
kind of flustered. And
they don't trust her. He doesn't trust her. They're basically saying you're lying. Basically, they just accuse her of lying. They're like, there's kind of like this tension between like, do we trust this person or not? Well, he leaves, and then they just like think out loud.
They didn't accuse her of lying. They were just saying we can't like run missions based on what you say someone else said. It wasn't like,
well, that I mean, I would say that's indirect lying, because it's like you.
Sure, but like,
you know, we can't believe what you said.
Good. Like because if it's like, if say you come to me like, hey Mike, we gotta invest like $1 million into this thing because someone told me it's gonna be legit. I'm like, oh cool, like who told you? You're like, oh, this guy, he's dead now though. And I'm like, okay, well Luke, I trust you, I guess, but I don't know where we got this information from. It doesn't seem super concrete. Like, it's not like they didn't trust Jin in that moment. I guess there's a little bit.
Well, I know Andor doesn't really trust her, right? I think they kind of established he doesn't trust her, at least.
Well, the whole premise of that scene for me was that Cassian was acting super sus. And
sure.
Everybody knew it. Like, it was like, oh, like he was like, hey, so we're gonna go do this, and she was like, hey, this is my dad, I'd like to go with, and he's like, no, you have to stay here, and she's like,
I think he basically says because he doesn't trust her. I think.
Well, it's something like.
I think he says something like that.
No, he says you're the one who has the message. Well, because there's.
That's so. But she also just told them the message, and he's like, I don't know that we can believe you on that message. And then he's like, no, you have to stay behind to stay alive to keep this message that I don't believe in.
Right. Well, so the buildup was, I have the message. This is the message, and he does do the whole like.
How can we believe you? How do we know you're not lying? Whatever. Yeah.
But he kind of is like, okay, whatever, fine. Like, we've got the message. You say this is what the message is. We'll talk about it at the meeting. We'll go. Well, then they land, and he's like, okay, Pilot Dude and I are gonna go scope it out. Oh, I'm gonna come with you. No, you have the one that has the message, so you have to stay. And she's like, but we all have the message because I just told you. And he still overrides her and is like, no, we're gonna go. You guys need to stay.
He doesn't want her to come while he kills her dad.
What?
Right.
He's got to say whatever he needs to say to keep her from watching him kill her dad.
Yeah, that's fine. There's something missing, I think, but I can't put my finger on it.
And so when they leave, they're all like looking around, and that's when blind Jedi guy is like, does he look like a killer to you? Huh? Does he look like a killer to you? No. And she's like, why would you ask that? And he's like, he had the dark side of the Force was kind of circling
Yeah, see,
around
but
him, and
why
that's
would
when it's
he?
like when,
Why? I don't know. It just seems odd that he's trusting her that much, unless they establish that he trusts her, or something. It just
I think
felt.
they established that he trusts her. He didn't have
I
reason not
guess.
to trust her. He was with her for a lot of the stuff. They escaped jail together or whatever. Like, it's not like he was one of the rebel council saying, I don't know. Like, I mean, he of all people was the most trusting person in that movie. I don't think he's.
But imagine, okay, so imagine this. Imagine
like, oh,
one
wow.
like 10-second scene that at some point in the movie you just show him, I guess he's blind, but you show him like processing her for a minute. Like he's like, you see him kind
Show
of.
him, well, he's blind.
Yeah, no, you can't show him looking at her, but like he's like, you show him deciding like, I believe this, I trust this person. Like even way earlier in the film, like where you kind of establish this connection where like he just knows she's good. And then when he like,
the market scene, don't they?
maybe they do, maybe they do this sort of scene, but I'm not sure.
This is where I think that stuff was definitely implied from the beginning.
But I don't know that
Not
they
in the
do
beginning,
it.
but,
I don't know, they do it well. They don't centralize the story
here's the
around
thing.
these things.
I don't think most movies. Okay, hold on. I think a lot of movies take some goodwill from the audience caring about the main characters. Not just this movie, but movies do it all the time. Where there's a main character, we implicitly trust that character no matter how crappy they are because they're the main character. We have to, and then characters tend to just like latch onto them for reasons. That's kind of a movie thing. And I'm not saying it's good every single time, but like I don't think there was nothing in Rogue One where I was like, what? That makes no sense. That's out of nowhere. It's like, no, this is a group of people in an action adventure genre movie where they tend to just run around and become friends instantly, and then they trust each other for the whole movie.
Like I don't watch
think
it.
it's like out of the realm of this kind of movie.
I don't watch it and go, oh my God, there's something, this is messed up. Makes no sense. I watch it and I go, wow, that felt hollow. Something was missing. Like there's just like something not there.
That great of a moment to feel.
Well, this is a
guess, but
general.
that
This is a
moment
general.
didn't
This is
feel
a
like it had to
general
be
thing.
super deep.
Yeah, obviously, there's one moment we can like disagree on, but this is my general feeling of the movie. That there's a lot of scenes where I'm like, yeah, there's something wasn't there. It's something missing. It's like why wasn't the joke so and so told funny? And it's like, I don't know, something was just not right. And so like in a script, like when you're writing a movie script, you basically describe what you see just in sentences. Person walks into frame. Person realizes something isn't right. Person turns to look at the light switch to see if something, whatever. Like you could just describe what's happening. And so in like this film, you would have one sentence in the script that says, blind guy with sticks, whatever his name is, notices, or what's her name? Jin catches so-and-so's attention, and he processes for a minute and realizes something about her. Moves on. Like one shot that shows something like that adds so many layers to him because you see him connecting to her, but it's a moment. It's not dialogue. It's not like, it's not like world building. It's just like showing a character reacting because as humans, we can see reactions and learn so much by the way a person looks at someone else. And there isn't really a lot of that in this film, I don't think. And so there's like a lack of depth to what I'm seeing out of the characters, I think. I don't know if that makes sense or if people agree.
No, I see what you're saying. Let me think, because
it can still be enjoyable watching and not be true.
So, yeah, and I think there's also not trying to like I'm trying to not make a stupid defense for a movie, but I'm trying to put context around some things.
Sure.
So the reason why I like this movie is one of the main things I enjoy about it is it feels like the prequels energy where stuff's happening, it's plot driven just like the prequels are, but the dialogue's a lot better and there's some interesting characters in it, but it fits in that world, and to me that's what I enjoy about it. And that world is a bad movie. Like it's hard to explain objectively why I think it's awesome, but
I think it's
sense? Like,
I mean it's the same both ways.
Star Wars movies have that's part of.
There's a little bit of a delay. I'm sorry for the
Star Wars movies
interruptions.
always have. You're okay. There's problems that Star Wars movies have that kind of feel like Star Wars, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you that the moment isn't as deep as it could have been, but it feels just as deep as a Star Wars moment is.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. But I do think that like So I'm having the same issue you're having, but the opposite direction, where I'm trying to put my finger on like what is missing from this film. You know, because when I get into discussions about it, it's actually really hard to orient it because it's like, I don't know, there's something missing to me, like something's missing. And a big part of it is tiny little moments, like couple seconds here. So for example, so like take Two Towers, for example. When you have all the Urukais attacking the Rohan village, and you have that scene with the mother, daughter, and son, where she's putting them on the horse and they're leaving. Like, what a great scene.
Right.
Just, it's a couple seconds, and it's like, what things get established in that? And it's like, well, the kid is being a kid. She's like, no, why is he riding this horse? He's not supposed to ride it. It's too big for him. And it's like, you're kind of putting together like, oh, the mom's not going. Right. And you kind of like, wait, she's going to get separated. And then like, the little sister doesn't really know how to process it. So she's just sort of complaining, but then it hits the girl and she's like, wait, no, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. And it's like such a great moment. And then you bring it back around later where you show that them reunite. And it's such a tiny little thing, but it's like, these are the villagers. This is what they're going through. And you just relate so much to like, oh, wow, this is a whole village of people. I learned so much in this little moment of empathy and emotion. And this film, I don't think has a lot of those little things, like couple seconds here or there, a look. Like, for example, one of the critiques I have is there doesn't seem to be like centralized scenes around Jin and Andor, where it's like Andor doesn't trust her, then he does trust her, then he's gonna kill her dad, then he doesn't kill her dad, then she sort of wins him over, then they're friends kind of, and you're not seeing this like, wait, when are they changing? When are they going from like being adversarial to like kind of trusting each other, to like fully trusting each other, to like almost becoming like lovers, sort of? I don't know that they actually get there, but they kind of go in that direct. Do they kiss? I don't even remember.
No, thank goodness.
No, they don't kiss.
But they're kind of going that direction,
hug
it
at
seems
the
like. Yeah, which I actually kind of appreciated. I'm glad they didn't like do the cliche kiss. But the idea is it's like they don't seem to really establish that part of the story. And I think that part of the story is what really hammers the characters home. Is like, do they trust each other? Why do they trust each other? How did they learn about each other? Like, what changed? And I don't think you see a lot of that. And the line also here, you'll never win. That's another line. There's 3 different lines, I think, where they repeat the same line as earlier in the film, where at the beginning of the film, the dad says, I think you'll never win, or the mom says you'll never win. And then later in the raining scene, when the dad's about to get killed, he says it there too.
Right.
So there's 3 instances in this film where people repeat the same line as sort of like a big moment kind of thing.
Yeah. Thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
I think you're right. But I think for me, I agree that the character work is not the best. I think it's, for a Star Wars movie, it's above average, I think. But I think, to me, that didn't take me out of the movie enough.
That's fine. I think I'm a bit more like fitful about it because of the way that I direct and edit. And I miss things that you guys notice, and I notice things that you guys might miss. And
I also think that some movies have just different objectives too. And not to say that like wanting more character development, I think wanting more character development, or let me rephrase, I think putting as much character development and character moments in your film is only good. I'm not saying it's better to ignore character moments, but I think some films are not going for character, if that makes sense. Not that that's objectively better or worse, but I think it's something that happens. Like this movie, I think it's very much trying to capture the spirit and the aesthetic and the adventure of Star Wars, and I think it nails it. And that's what makes it good enough that I can overlook some shallow character interactions, if that makes sense.
I have here about Darth Vader. I don't really think Darth Vader controls the scene very well, where you first see him in his little castle. The only part that I thought was good, like his blocking is off. Something about, he's not controlling the room, in my opinion. But his choking.
It seems like he kind of gets washed out.
Yeah, and he feels like he's like walking away and kind of like stomping around, and something just feels kind of off. He doesn't control the scene well, except for that scene where you see him turning and he's got his fingers sort of like in a little pinching. He's not doing the regular force choke. He's doing like a little pinching one. And the way he just sort of turns and he's like, try not to choke on your achievements or something. Whatever he says. Like that was great. I like, yeah. I like that. I thought that was fun.
That line's cheesy, but I love it though.
But it was great. I thought the timing of it was fun. So I like that, you know.
Yeah.
Looking what else we have, because we got about 10 minutes left, by the way, to kind of go through more.
I disagree. All the Vader stuff was phenomenal. All of it
I
was
think if I
phenomenal.
pointed out the things I'm talking about, you might appreciate it, but it wasn't terrible. I just directing
I think
wouldn't
that
have.
Darth Vader felt like a side plot in the
Yeah.
movie, and
Kinda like
I don't know if
Venom
it
in
was on purpose or
Spider-Man
not,
3.
But I agree. Like, yeah, I agree. Like, it felt like he was kind of like tacked on a little bit. I liked all the Darth Vader stuff, like especially the last scene when he's like chopping down those rebels, even though it doesn't really make sense for going to Episode 4. I think, depending on how much time is it between those two movies. But I think it's like a really cool scene that shows how cool Vader actually is with modern lightsaber skills. You know, he's not just an old guy hitting another old guy with a stick.
I think it's a fair.
I do-
think it's a fair critique to say that when you jump from the end of Rogue One to the start of Episode 4, there's a level of like, what, how the heck can you get away with lying so badly? Like, oh, we're on a diplomatic mission.
As he's watching them reach the thumb drive through the
It
door.
totally changes the context. Yeah, like
But
they
the
just
other
escaped,
side
like,
of
10
it
minutes
is,
ago.
but this is a justification that I would give for it. It would explain why Vader is so pissed at the opening of Episode 4.
He's killing everyone and stuff.
And he chucks him against the wall, and like, you think about it, in the entire franchise, Vader only yells once, and it's the start of Episode 4.
Well, Episode 3,
I guess that's true.
when he's first becomes Vader. But I guess you could make an argument he's still kind of Anakin at that point.
He's going through some stuff too.
No, but you can make an argument that that's Anakin. What part in 4?
Yeah.
Take her away. That part?
Yeah, you're a part of the Rebel Alliance.
And a traitor. Take her away. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
So
it does recontextualize it. I think it's not movie ruining for either one, but it's kind of a clumsy ending, I think.
So,
Speaking of the ending, though,
do you guys want to go a little bit longer? I'm good to go a little bit longer if you guys want to keep going, because we don't have... If not, we'll just wrap up.
I gotta wrap it up by like 6:05.
Let's stick with the plan. Let's stick with the plan. If we can revisit this if we want to keep going. So you want to talk about the ending? I want to talk about the rebellion scene. And if you guys want me to go quick, this is the scene I kind of hate the most, because it's like so cliche. I think the pacing is so off. I think it's like, let me see what I have written down here. It's like, She's talking about chance, like, what chance do we even have? And then she's like, I say we fight. I say the rebellion is finished. Cringe music. And then everyone just sort of believes her, and she gives this horrible, she's like, it just feels like an AI script. It feels terrible to me. Then they go, may the force be with us, and they all cheer. I hate it. I think it's the most cliche, horrible scene ever. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that scene.
I hate it. I think it's the most corniest scene ever.
Goofy. I also think that the reason for not trusting her is pretty lame. Just given like the fact that the rebellion is kind of all like jerry-rigged stuff put together. Like they're all kind of just getting whatever info they can and passing it along to each other. Like it's not like every single person that comes with info, they're like, oh, is the guy who gave you this info still alive? Like, you know, you can hear someone say something and believe it, you know?
Yeah, and it's very like, do the character, it's like establishing the story, like, do they trust her or do they not? And it just seems like it kind of is like whimsically in and out of that, where she's with them, she's allowed to go to their secret meeting, she's allowed in their base, but then they're like, but we don't know if we should trust you. And then Andor is sort of like flip-flopping with her too, and I don't know that they ever really, like, this is the story I think they don't tell. They never really tell the story of like, when does she become someone they trust and why? Like, what does she do that, like, you know, like Han coming back in Episode 4, you're like, this is him being like, I'm going to stick around, I'm going to help you guys. I'm not just going to look out for myself like everyone thought I was. I'm going to come back. And so that's kind of his big moment. I feel like they never have this in this, where it's like, where does she come back? When do they trust her? When does she become like a part of the rebellion? And they make it this scene where she gives this like cliche inspirational speech. And I think the directing is horrible. I think there's no substance behind it. And it's just clumsy and awkward and cliche. Yeah, really. I like cringe watching. It feels like I'm watching a James Franco movie where they're like making fun of a movie where they give a big speech. It feels so fake and like, oof.
So
favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not well done. I think the two things for me that I didn't like about that scene. I agree with everything you just said. These are the two things that stood out to me. One, they tried to make Jin into somebody that she never was.
Yep, agreed.
So that didn't feel good. It felt very like, ooh, like she's not a rebel leader. Like she's she's not even in the rebel. You know what I mean? So that.
Well, she was like kind of in this for herself for a while. It's just sort of like, imagine if Han Solo gave a speech before they fly into the Death Star and was like really inspiring and being like, we just got to believe in ourselves and like we're rebels and we're going to like win this. I believe in you guys and we're friends. You know, it'd be like such an odd, why is Han Solo doing this? Or what change of heart did he have that we didn't see? It's like that to me. It just feels very out of place, very awkwardly paced.
I think they're speed running it a little bit, but I think I don't know, to me it felt like it came together in the end, where I felt like the theme to this movie to me seemed like people who have to do everything they can in order to like, win the day, in order to do what they think is right. Because at the end of the day, no one really trusts her anymore than they did before. She's not even like communicating with anybody at that point. Like it's people who are just, things have been set in motion. Everyone's doing their best and sacrificing everything to get this done. And it's not even like her mission anymore. She's ultimately the one that like puts the cartridge in the thing.
Right.
But I feel like by the end of the movie, the point, at least to me, that I got was, this is everyone's fight and everyone needs to give every single thing they have or it's not going to work. It's not dependent on this one person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think the thing that would have helped with that, though, that would have helped make that a little clearer or a little more evident, and this is my second critique of the Rebellion Council scene, is that you had an opportunity to assert at least two characters who are huge characters in the Star Wars universe and the Rebellion. You had Bail Organa and the lady in white, Mon Mothma. Those
Fun
two
fact,
characters.
the girl playing her in this movie is the daughter of the woman in
Oh, nice.
the
Episode
original
6.
trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell is
Yeah, you
excellent.
can.
But like imagine, for the sake of argument, imagine if Bail Organa and Mon Mothma had given really strong, impassioned speeches about the purpose of the rebellion, why they're there, why we're supposed to do, and
it could have connected Jin with the rebellion. Like imagine if if that like other character, like you utilize her character as opposed to just being a cameo, you like really use her character to connect Jin to the rebellion, where it's like something connects her to being like, this connects to my fundamentals that my father taught me, and this is, I can see my father and my father's wishes like in this rebellion, so I'm going to continue on now that he's gone. I'm going to like just something, just something that like makes it like, oh, this is why she is gonna do this. This is the emotional reason, not the logical, but like her character, what emotionally is like making her decide to be a part of this group and deliver a very emotional speech. Like what led her there? And it just feels very like just out of nowhere.
Right. And so it would have done two things apart from what you just said, Luke. It also would have made the destruction of Alderaan that much more disastrous because Bail Organa says, hey, I need to go to Alderaan. And when you watch episode 4, he's on that planet, boom.
Yeah.
So that's a much bigger loss. And then two, Mon Mothma's character is in episode 6, and if you would have had that scene with her in Rogue One, you would have recognized her in episode 6 and been like, oh, that's who that is. It's a big deal that she's here and that she's the one kind of heading everything, And so, because Disney loves doing that, right? They love with all the tie-in characters with the two dudes in Jadu who are like the wanted villain guys from episode 4, and this cameo of R2-D2 and C-3PO, and the cameo of Leia, and the cameo of, all these different, and the reference to Obi-Wan and all this stuff. And it's like, you could have had that moment, and kind of tying in what we've just been talking about, in a movie that is bereft of characters establishing themselves and this, that, and the other. You needed a moment where it's like, we know that guy, we know that lady from Clone Wars, from Revenge of the Sith, from episode 6, from all of this. That would have been their moment to kind of step into the role and be like, these are characters we know, good, strong character moments that could then lead into what the end of the movie turned into, which the end of the film was the strongest part of the film, I thought, with the action, space, land, like all of that. I thought that was all great and really well done.
I agree
I
mostly.
think the end was awesome.
I think the end, so it's just going to be the same theme. I do like things about it, but I just disagree with the directing is kind of the big theme of this, is I disagree with the angle they chose to approach it. So for example, I don't know, why, like they just had like random things. Like remember when they've got that like clamping door with the spikes that kind of opens and closes? And she has this long like...
I know they asked, what does that door
Yeah,
do?
why
What's
is
the
it?
point of that?
Why is this a scene? It's like she's conflicted, and then she goes through the tunnel anyway, and it's like, what is this connected to? Why was that even in there? Other than it's like a challenging Mario level that she has to go through. I didn't really get the point. And then she has to like realign the
Some
disc.
Star Wars
and
industry makes no sense.
well, I mean, yeah. So like, but basically, so she goes out. She goes to kind of realign this disc, and then like the villain guy shows up and is like, who are you? Like he's been chasing her forever, and it's like, why is he asking her this? He's just like shooting people right and left, and people are dying, and then there's one person, he's like, but you intrigue me. Who are you? Tell me your name. It's just odd. And it's like, oh, it's because he knows her, and this is where it's gonna be the big reveal, but it was just odd. It just cliche and odd, and like trying to make it very personal, it didn't feel personal to me.
They wanted the big reveal. It felt like a forced. We want the I'm Jin Cordana, son of or daughter of what's his face and daughter of what's her face, to like make the connection at the beginning where it's like I'm the girl you failed to get and therefore I'm the
I know.
one.
Then you see how it's like it's written for the ending. It's not written for the characters. It's written for the dialogue delivery, where she can tell him, and it's like, so why is he asking? Oh, so she can respond. Not because it makes sense. And it's like, this writing is so cringe because it just feels off, you know? And like, so they blow it up. I do think that them all dying is good. I like the hug. I like kind of some of the emotion, but I think it missed the mark. I think like we should have, what an idea is like, we could have seen the Death Star bullet hit. And instead of it being like this action movie, cinematic, huge ending, epic music, because that's what it was like this like heroic music, I think it could have been like silent and like quiet, where all the characters realize like, we pulled this off, we're not leaving though. And there's so much you could tell in like someone's face as they think, we're gonna die. I don't get to talk to the people I wanted to talk to anymore. I'm not gonna be around. We did good, so I feel good, but this is the end. Like we're all about to die. And then like having them find peace in it, where they're like, but we did what we needed. But there was no narratives like leading up to that to like make it an ending, in my opinion. What do you guys think about that?
I mean,
I think that could have been cool, but I think it struck a good balance between big explosion and focusing on character. It kind of got right in the middle of it, I think.
Yeah, it's a different flavor. I'm just saying I wish it was a different flavor. You know, I'm like, I didn't like the flavor they chose, and personally, and I felt like there's more to explore if they had chosen just like a more emotional, more quiet, more like, I don't know, characters accepting that they're going to die for the cause seems like a central theme that could have really been fleshed out more, in my opinion.
So have I discussed with you guys about how I have like 3 levels of like when I grade a film? There's like a great film, a good film, and then just an entertaining film.
Yep.
Have I talked about?
You mentioned it to me before.
Yeah. So the idea. Yeah. So the idea being that like an entertaining film is really good to watch in the theater, but there are some things that you kind of have to buy into, or things you just kind of have to. If you think about it too much, it kind of falls apart. And so it's not really meant to, be discussed in that way, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say it's sort of like knowing the type of movie you're watching, where it's like, I'm going to watch Fast and Furious and be like, why is this not a dramatic acting masterpiece? And it's like, dude, you're watching Fast and Furious, man. Like, there's different movies for different types of entertainment.
Yeah, and so I think that Rogue One is in the top echelon of entertaining film. Like, there are things to critique, and there are things that are like, okay, like maybe it could have been this, or maybe it could have been that. But watching the movie again, I was taken back into Star Wars, and there weren't enough moments that stood out to me that took me out of Star Wars. That happened all the time in 8 and 9.
Sure.
It happened all the time in 8 and 9. It doesn't happen to me in Rogue One, and so I walked away from Rogue One feeling like I just got taken on a Star Wars adventure. Characters may not have been the best. There were some moments in like the writing where it's like, if I think about it a little bit too much, oh gosh, that doesn't make sense, or that seems kind of silly, or that seems kind of corny. But there were also a lot of entertaining corny moments where you've got the blind guy walking out in the middle of a firefight. I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me. I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me. And then he beats the crap out of a bunch of stormtroopers, and you're like, if you think about it, you're like, okay, that's kind of dumb. But in the moment, you're like, blind guy with the Force, and it's like.
When they put the bag over his head, he's like, "Are you kidding me? I'm blind." Busted out laughing.
It's like, okay. So yeah, so I don't know.
So we're at time. I say, why don't we just talk about the ending really quick, and then we'll wrap up the episode, because I know, Michael, you said you were going to get going, and we'll just wrap it up. So ending.
Yeah.
We've got Darth Vader coming through and killing everyone. They got the thumb drive, and then we've got Leia. Those are sort of the last little bits. I'm going to leave it up to you, as I've kind of led a lot of this. Who wants to start?
Darth Vader was awesome.
Agreed. It is awesome, but I don't like the thumb drive, where it's like, doesn't Darth Vader basically see them? Can he just force pull the thumb drive out of his hand? It's just kind of like it's like a kind of a stupid scenario where they're like, take it through the door. You know, I just think that was kind of stupid, but I love the scene. Like the Darth Vader killing them is amazing.
I think that's where I would pull on the whole don't think about it too much.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because they're going for the scary moment, like it's almost like a
payoff.
thriller, like movie
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
They're drawing it out. Darth Vader's also like, I feel like he's kind of enjoying beating the crap out of everyone. I don't think he will expect that they will be able to get anywhere without him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think he thinks they're trapping me. They're trapping you with me. I'm not gonna. There's no way they're gonna just escape out of nowhere. That's crazy. But then they do.
He's like force pulling people and cutting people in half. Like it's great. And I think it's good too, because you don't see any lightsabers in this film. So I like that they like gave us a lightsaber at the end, minus the slight critique I have over like the it's like a cool scene above a logical scene in a way, where it's like, oh, it'll be more intense if Darth Vader's like 1 foot away from the guy handing the thumb drive through the door. That would be so much more intense because it's so close. And to me, sometimes when people do that, it's like, you actually made it cornier. Like imagine if it wasn't that close, but people were just getting lit up and killed. I don't think they needed Darth Vader to be like a foot away from the hard drive to make that scene intense. But it's sort of like this Hollywood cliche that has to be like within inches of getting, he almost got it. It was so close. Why is that necessary? I just don't think that's needed. It just seems like action movie for the sake of action movie. It's a minor complaint. It's a minor complaint. I will admit.
Other things I like about the ending though, I liked the whole final battle was pretty cool. Like I feel like a lot of times in Star Wars, there's not always a lot of strategy. It's just kind of like, all right, we're gonna go. We use the Force, and there's like some plans, but it's not about the plans. It's about the fighting. There's little moments in between. Exactly.
Well, like the whole battle of
it was cool
Endor
because
it's just a big cluster.
Yeah.
Right. And
everyone's just doing stuff. But in this movie, it was like there's objectives. People are working together. There's a plan going in, and then the fleet comes in, and they're like, okay, what's going on? How can we be the most helpful? And they're trying to get through the shield, and then they get a message up saying, hey, we really need to get through the shield right now. It's like, okay, and they do like the coolest thing ever, which I thought was super sick. My favorite ship in Star Wars is that Hammerhead Corvette ship, where there's no Lego set of, and I'm so mad. I've been mad about this since it came out. I remember seeing that ship, I was like, I need it. And it doesn't exist. At least not.
Wait, isn't it the ship that pushes the one Star Destroyer through the other?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's bullshit.
I thought that was so cool. They
what? But it's
another Star Destroyer.
I don't know.
And then
felt there was a little Star Wars breaking
in space. But there's gravity in Star Wars space for some reason. How is that world breaking?
I don't know. You can just push another ship into. You can push a ship into the other ship and it cuts it in half. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's how things work, man. You push.
Yeah,
maybe it's fine.
Something.
I don't know. Okay, what do you both agree?
That's pretty. First of all,
who do you agree
with?
First
of all, it's the same. So the pushing of a ship, because
it's like a boat.
Well, I was gonna say, think of it this way: in sci-fi story, Navy, isn't for ships on sea, it's for ships in space. So there's tugboats and push boats in the ocean. There's tugboats and push boats in space. And also, I actually, when I rewatched it, I kind of had to think about the logic behind it, and I was like, well, think about it. In order for that to work, the ship has to be disabled. Well, they did that with the ion missiles. The only
Okay,
reason
fair
they
enough.
couldn't-
See, these are the things you guys notice. These
Right.
are
So,
those things.
so they had to disable the ship. Also, and so why is that important? Because you wouldn't get close enough because you're getting blasted with its lasers. Well, they don't have the lasers. And then it's like, well, what about the shields? It's like, well, the shields are meant to deflect bullets, lasers, bombs, like all that kind of stuff. A ship literally being shoved down your, whatever bad word you want to throw in there, right? Like you're not stopping that. And once you push it down and everything's falling apart, then it does make sense. And this isn't.
And they also,
It's no episode 8. It is not her light speeding through the Death Star level. It is not even close. Not even close. Yeah, I know. I'm saying it's not even close to that. I still am a little bit
they
like.
also showed a lot of.
I don't know. You guys make good points
A
though.
lot of close-up scenes of. They show a lot of close-up scenes of rebels shooting the command center of that ship. So it's not like, oh, this ship is now all of a sudden kind
That's
of messed
fair.
up. But
That's a
they
fair
did
point.
set up,
That's a fair point.
They're concentrating fire on the important parts of the ship, and now it's just float. It's just dead in the water.
Wouldn't it be kind of? I
dead-
guess if
dead
I
in
could
space.
critique it, I think the only thing it needs is like a scene leading up to where they're leading up to pushing it. Like they're like, the shield's down now, push it now, and then they hit it and push it, and it's kind of like, oh, they were planning this, and it's sort of like, we're going to take this shield. I don't know, maybe not. I'm not sure. I guess it's, if they weakened the ship, that's a pretty strong factual reason for why this is logical.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said when something seems like it was planned, or at least that they had ideas going in, they're waiting for the right moment to strike. But I think that is cool when it happens, but I think sometimes it's not always necessary. You can set it up, be like, oh, here's an opening, some guy has a clever idea on the spot. Can we pull it off? Yeah, let's get this guy in real fast. Let's go. And then they just do it. I think it works. I don't think it pulls me out of the movie, but I understand why some people are feel like things. I feel like some people need.
I
things to be
raised
set
my
up more.
eyebrows. I raised my eyebrows at it. I was like, I don't know. Is this a stretch? I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
I think it's totally plausiable. Like
Yeah.
Josh said, it's just a ship pushing a ship, and that
Yeah.
ship, the Hammerhead ship, it looks like it's made to do that. It has 5 big engines on the back. It's got a
Sure.
hammer on it.
Yeah. I guess I
made to push
can
stuff.
secede.
There's no Lego set for it.
So I
That's
guess
the most important
we're at time. We got to wrap up here. I think
Yeah.
good discussions about the movie. I appreciate everyone's point of view on this. I'd be curious to see if we all can sort of marinate on all the things we talked about and see if it brings up discussions later if we have ideas and stuff. But,
Sure.
What do you guys think? What did we miss? What stupid stuff did we not say, or did we say? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and love to continue the debates with people outside of this video. So cool. Anyone want to say anything else before we wrap up about the movie?
I think we got it.
Awesome. Thanks,
I think-
everyone.
I think it's a good movie that captures the vibes of Star Wars. It's not perfect, but I think Star Wars is objectively bad, and that's why we love it. So I think it kind of works.
All right, I guess I could summarize. I think it's a mid movie. That's true. I think it's a mid movie with some decent world building and potentially deeper layers of storytelling that I just missed. But I think it's kind of forgettable and there's not a lot of substance to it. That's kind of where I am with it. Josh, what about you? Let's just do this. Force everyone to do it.
Yeah, it's a fun Star Wars adventure film. Probably not in the top. It's not in my top 5 anymore. I think it was my top 5 before, but it's not in my top 5 anymore. But also, if someone comes to me and is like, "Hey, I want to watch a Star Wars film. I really want to watch Rogue One," I'm game. It's like,
Nice.
good.
Okay.
Let's watch Rogue One.
Yeah. It's a solid one. All right, dudes.
Sweet.
I will
Thanks,
see
guys.
You later. May the force be with you.
The force is with you and the force is with me, or whatever he says. Yes. I'm one with the force and the force is with me.
The force is with you. The force is with me.